We're still on with us right here on Signature Morning on Signature T. Another segment of our discussion would be on federal government's charge of treason on 10 Endbadgovernance protesters. And to discuss that right now, we have Barrister Abreze Ugu. Good morning, Barrister.
Good morning, my sister.
How are you doing this morning?
Honestly, I feel like you did not use fuel to come to this place, because if you did, you would have been stressed. You don't look stressed.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Well, I came early.
Oh, that's
so,
good.
There is no doubt that there was much problem on the road.
Yes.
But then there was a friend of mine that called me from Lagos sometime late last year and told me that Tinubu was a magician. That was his first statement he made. I said, how? He told me that the Lagos traffic that I'm used to is no longer the traffic in Lagos, because the gridlock that used to be the hallmark of Lagos traffic has totally disappeared. That distance that would take me about 5-6 hours to travel, I now do it in 10 minutes. So that's the same case with Enugu, the same case right around this country.
But even before we go to what we want to discuss, I want to have your own take on the federal government, NNPC saying that they want to be selling 855 naira. What was your take?
You see, already, most of the stations are selling 980, 1,000 naira per liter. And I think that NNPC, which is a federal government company, and the federal government itself, if they are really serious about having Nigerians stay alive, then they have to create an enabling environment for Nigerians to remain alive. The price of fuel is so gargantuan, it's unimaginable, it is incomprehensible, it is incongruous. I do not understand it.
Of course, we've discussed that already. So let's go to the pressing issue at hand. We've seen the federal government come out to give 10 of these guys the charge of treason. But just so we understand the gravity of what that word means, can you, from your own expert opinion, give us the definition of what treason is?
Treason is an offense that was established first and foremost. It is important to let us know that the Constitution, which is the ground norm, that is the highest law in this country, it is the lawgiver. Anything anybody is doing in Nigeria does not have foundation in the Constitution, is a nullity. Now, that Constitution said in Section 36, I think it's subsection 10 or 12, that for any act to be an offense, to be punished by any court of law, that act must be contained in a written law, which written law must also state the penalty for that offense. This country has a criminal code act, which has been here from the early 20th century. That's early 19-something. Now the criminal code defines and establishes the offense of treason. And it says that treason is anybody that does anything that is aimed at, I want to define it in obese boy English, in a layman's language. Anybody that does anything that is geared towards changing the government of the people. That is the government of the country. That means you want to do something that will affect the lives of Nigerians. That's the implication in it. Now, that means also that you are doing an act that will affect Nigerians gravely and probably bring to the death of a lot of Nigerians. That's what the government, our British colonial masters that brought this Criminal Code Act, that's what they looked at. They also have it in their country, and most countries have the offense of treason. But some countries, many countries, have long abolished the penalty of a death penalty, death sentence. So that the treason exists in almost every country. But then, you see, the existence of a law is totally different from the implementation of the law. Now, I've said that treason is anything done by anybody, either by word of mouth or by action, which is aimed at violently changing the government of the country. So anything done to change the government of the country, not within the bounds of the law.
So even by what I say, I can be implicated?
Yes. By word of mouth or by action, a man can commit treason. The moment it is aimed at changing the government of the country outside the purview of law, outside the provisions of the law, that is the way the law said the government of the country should be changed. If you look at the Constitution, it is awash with provisions stating how the government of the country can be changed by election after every 4 years, which is what brought Tinubu into governance. Anything you do outside the provisions of the law aimed at changing the government of the country, whether you succeed or not.
Okay, do you think the protesters' actions constitute treason, or is this a case of overreach by the government?
First and foremost, I think it would be right to look at it from, again, the provisions of the Constitution, because you continue to refer to the Constitution because it is the ground norm, it is the final norm, it is the fons et origo. Everything emanates from it. The Constitution said in Section 14, subsection 2, paragraph B, that the primary purpose of government is the welfare of the people. That same Constitution said in Section 14, subsection 2, paragraph C, that the participation of the people in their government should be ensured should be ensured in accordance with the Constitution. The people have the right to participate in their government. How do they do that? That same Constitution says in Section 38 talks about the freedom of thought, the freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. You have the freedom. You have the right to freedom of expression, freedom of thought. What do you think? You have the right to express it. It also, sections 38, 39, 40, and 41 are very important here. The right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, the right to freedom of expression, the right to peaceful assembly, the right to assembly, peaceful assembly, and of course the right to freedom of movement. These were the 4 rights that the protesters were exercising. The Constitution has provided for these rights. And remember that these rights are enshrined in fundamental rights. They are enshrined in the chapter called Fundamental Rights, Chapter 4, which runs from Section 33 to Section 46. And even the Nigerian Supreme Court has said in LPDC against Chigani Fawemi that chapter on fundamental human rights are the most important parts of the Constitution, which has the privilege of nullifying any other provision of the Constitution or indeed any other legislation that is inconsistent with it. Now, since these sections are the most important sections in the Constitution, it behooves us to not only ensure that they are done, but to ensure that nothing is done to breach any of those rights. Now, remember that this Section 14, which I mentioned, is of this Chapter 2. That is, the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy, which runs from Sections 13 to Section 32. The Constitution, by Section 6 of Section 6, Paragraph C, says that the chapter on fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy is non-justiciable. That means you can't enforce them in court of law. But then, the Constitution, in the 7th schedule, which contains the oath of office and oath of allegiance, which every political office holder in this country must swear to before he assumes office, says that anybody swearing to that oath will also take an oath to ensure and protect Chapter 2. That is, that chapter on fundamental objectives and the directive principles of state policy. You've taken an oath to ensure and protect it. That means you're also protecting the fact that the sole purpose of, the primary purpose of government is the welfare of the people. You have also sworn to an oath to ensure that the participation of the people in the government is ensured by you. You took an oath to ensure the participation of people. And they are now participating in their government by their right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, their right to freedom of expression, their right to peaceful assembly, and their right to freedom of movement.
You've explained this legally, and it's interesting. But now, I'd like to get your own personal view. What's your take on this? How do you think it's being handled? Do you think it's the best way?
I want to tell you very frankly that this charge you have seen is a double-edged sword.
How so?
That must be wielded with caution and not hazarded lightly. Because this trial is going to turn to the trial of the government itself. And remember that in court, whatever anybody says is privileged. So you can turn that trial into a dissection of the ills of the government. You see, it's very unfortunate that we are beginning to trivialize the offense of treason. Right from the days of Abdurrahman Shugaba, who was charged with treason in the First Republic. Right from that period, it was a political trial, not a criminal trial. Treason has been converted in Nigeria into political offense instead of criminal offense. The law defines it as a criminal offense. But instead of trying criminals for treason, we now anybody that does not accept the opinion of the government is now branded a treasonable, branded a treasonable felon. It is wrong. If the government is well advised, they should immediately withdraw that charge.
Looking at yesterday's newspaper headlines from the Daily Independent, we have that Britain, that's a Nigerian but British international, was being put, 20 million bounty was put on her, to be able to be arrested or so. And you see her coming out to react or reply to the government that she isn't running, she's not a fugitive. So are you saying that government has gone overboard in the case of even putting 20 million naira bounty?
You see, that underscores the frustration of the government with that protest of August 1 to August 10. But I think that the question should be on what was it that necessitated that protest? Why not forget the fallout of the protest and attack the cause of the project of the protest? Attack the cause, C-A-U-S-E, not the cause, C-O-U-R-S-E. It's very important for the government. If I were the government, the question should be, Why should that protest have even been contemplated by the people of this country? What was the reasons that made it not just indispensable, but probably mandatory for the people of this country to engage in protest? That protest was indispensable. It was not just necessary, but indispensable. Because let me tell you, just walk on the streets. You will see even people who are well dressed. Many of them may not have eaten for days, and they are begging for food. Somebody will come and tell you, he's not asking you for money, he's asking you to just buy bread. Enter any store to buy anything. Somebody must approach you and plead with you to buy a loaf of bread for him, or to buy okpa for him. See, Nigerians have the hardship has gotten to a level that is unprecedented in the economic history of this country. And it is any responsible government not even wait for a protest to do something. And the position is even getting worse. The other day I listened to a former secretary to government of the Federation. I've forgotten his name now. I think it's the one that Buhari removed. He said that he's not a farmer, and that he's a mechanized farmer, that he is telling Nigerians that what we have today is a situation whereby we want to buy food, but we can't see money to buy food. But by next year, the question will be that there is money to buy food, but the food to be bought is not there. What is the situation? That statement, I should think that the government should take it very seriously. That's why they need to do something, because the farming period, the farming season, is dictated by nature, not by the government. The government should have started doing something long ago to ensure that this farming season is that a lot of food is planted, so that by the next year, Nigerians will no longer talk about food. There is no reason why Nigeria should not even be feeding the Africa. We have everything. We have the landmass, and most of our land are arable, very, very arable, very rich in those vitamins that make food to grow very well. And I do not see what the problem is. But you know that at the foot of the entire problem about food security is the security of lives and property. That is why farmers are no longer free to go to the farms. It is women that farm in Nigeria, not men. That's when you talk about the subsistence farming, which is the major thing that is done in Nigeria, not mechanized farming. It's the women that go to farms. Now, over time, the last 9 years, since APC came into power 2014, when the women go to farms, most of them are not only raped, but killed. And the thing sends shock waves down the spines of other women. And so most of them no longer go to farm. So everybody is now busy chasing very tiny food that is available. The long and short of it is that if you were feeding your family in a month with 50,000 naira, you now need probably 500,000 to feed the same family within the same period. Government should have long declared a state of emergency on food production in Nigeria. And unless they do that, they're talking about protests. Well, I'm not a prophet of doom. But then the question is not whether the government should do something. The question is, what should the government do and how urgently?
Okay, now, you explained a lot of things when you were giving us the freedom of, the thing that we have freedom to do, freedom of thought and everything. And then everybody knows that there is freedom of speech. And then these people came out to voice their opinion, and then they've been hit with treason. Do you think this is a plan from the government to keep people muted?
It was a Atanda Fatai Williams, CJN, I say Aden long become, in Senator Abraham Adesonya against the press, 1981, I think it's 2 Nigerian constitutional law reports, edited and published by Chief Gani Farini, who said that it is better that you allow freedom of speech, because when you breach freedom of speech, you are asking the government, you're asking the people to do the opposite. They will take to the streets. They may even go for the worst, which is probably revolution. I can't call for it. I'm not calling for it. I'm a law-abiding Nigerian. But then, you see, if you refuse to stop beating me, you keep beating me and beating me and beating me, you push me to the wall, while you are holding me against the wall, you are trying to kill me. What do you expect? It's not possible for me to remain there and watch myself die. I will respond. I will fight back. If you want peace, you need to give that environment that will enable peace to reign. The government should not suppress expression. If you suppress expression, you are converting Nigeria to an iron curtain, which was what happened to the defunct USSR. We saw that position was there for some time, but you saw when the people began to react, it was total. That is what brought about the collapse of USSR, the collapse of that iron curtain. And when even some persons decided to revolt, brought the army onto the streets to dismantle what Mikhail Gorbachev had done by re-establishing USSR, the people took to the streets and said, no, we won't allow it. The military brought thousands of armored tanks on the streets, and the people told the military, shoot us, we will not go back to our houses. The democracy must be allowed to thrive. And any part of USSR that wanted to break out was free to break out. That's why you now have over 15 countries that now broke away from USSR. So these things it's not a rocket science. These are things that are dictated by nature. Nature has a course. And the moment you begin to go against that course of nature, then of course the result will be what you probably do not want.
All right, Barrister, you are a well-abiding citizen of this country, practitioner. So what would you say to some citizens out there who don't have privilege of coming to speak or to add their view to the government in this particular situation? What do you think people like you in your position should put hands together to do that the government should be looking at right now? Because there are people in the villages, different local places that can't be able to come up to even speak.
You see, that's it is because these people do not have they do not have the means to express their opinion. They kept bottling it up. They speak, but their thoughts cannot be heard because they do not. Now, because these things kept bottling up, when the opportunity of protest now came, all of them jumped at it and began to say, this is what we want. This is what we do not want. Now, it is very important that the people of this country should be allowed to exercise those freedoms that are granted to them. Let me even tell you, you appreciate the fact that we operate a democracy. You also remember how democracy evolved. It evolved from Athens in Greece in the 6th century BC. But what they mean by democracy is a little different from what we have. What they meant was total democracy. Today we have representative democracy. Because what we now practice is different from what they wanted, what they encouraged. They don't look at what we practice today as democracy. It is their own idea, their own brand of democracy that they appreciated, because it was a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Those three phrases are not defined the same way they were defined. And in those days, what they used to do was that whatever they wanted to do, the entire people together in a village square, in a large place, and they would take decision on everything. If they want to execute any contract, all of them will come together. Anything they wanted, any policy of God, anything, they will all come together and take a decision on it. And also even appoint people that will do it. But now, it's very cumbersome, especially now that Nigeria has, some people say Nigerians are up to 300 million. Now, it's unthinkable for anybody to do such thing. That's why the people now decide there should be representative democracy. There should be a system whereby all the people will come together and elect people to be in the executive, to be in the legislature, to be in the judiciary. Three arms of government. The legislature, the first branch of government, Section 4 of the 1999 Constitution, will first enact the law. The executive, which is the second branch, Section 5 of the Constitution, will assent the law. The judicature, which is the third branch, Section 6 of the Constitution, will interpret the provisions of the law that the legislature has made. After that interpretation, everybody will take that interpretation as the law that has been made by the legislature. Now, when these things are done, the government is duty-bound to implement the law. The people on their own have the right under the Constitution to recall any member of the legislature that is not doing the right thing. Because the Constitution grants the legislature the right to impeach the president if he's not doing what the people want.
Do you think these
to impeach any member of the executive that is not any member, but the people heading the executive, president, vice president, governor, deputy governor, they can be impeached by the legislature. And if the legislature refuses to do that, or any member of the legislature who is seen by the people to be a cog in the wheel of the progress of that impeachment, can be recalled by the people. The Constitution provides for that system of recall. Now, again, you see, but let me digress a little by saying that the major problem we have with the government of Nigeria is the fact that the people are irresponsive. The people,
yes,
I use the word irresponsive. They do not know what they should be doing. They just elect the government and go home and start sleeping. It's not like that in the developed world. You elect a government and you still keep your eyes open. You monitor what they're doing. The moment they're doing the wrong thing, you say no. When they do the right thing, you applaud it. That is where the Constitution gave the people the right to protest. First and foremost, when things are done, just like as we are discussing here, you applaud the government. You say no to this policy. This one the government did is wrong. Government, please do it like this. We think that if you do it like this, it will be better. And if the government refuses to listen, you say it and say it and say it. If they refuse to listen, you now visit the Constitution. Section 38, right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Section 39, right to peaceful assembly. That's Section 40. Section 39, right to freedom of speech and the press. Section 41, to freedom of movement. You put these four rights together, you exercise them, you get on the streets, you protest, peaceful protest. You say no to this act that the government has done, and honestly.
Okay, permit me to ask you this personal question. Did you participate in the Endbadgovernance protest?
You see, I didn't protest. I didn't participate.
If you may, why?
I didn't participate physically.
Okay.
Because the unofficial government of Igbo people said Igbos should not participate physically. That does not mean that them in spirit. If I am in Enugu, if you want to participate in protest, it's possible to engage in a one-man protest. But then, what will it achieve?
Is there a legal declaration by the federal government to prevent the Igbos from protesting?
That's what I said. There's no government anywhere in this country that said Igbos should not protest. But I said the unofficial government of the people of Igbo land, that is Neze, said Igbos should not participate physically.
Could you say a reason why they made that?
They said so because the Igbos have been at the receiving end of everything in this country. They borne the brunt of every single protest in Nigeria. Beginning from 1967, when the government, the soldiers then, engaged in pogrom against the state of the people of Igbo land. Right from that time till now. In fact, if you even look at the recent history, any protest that takes place, it is the Igbos that bear the brunt. Even this last August 1 to August 10 protest, it was still Igbos that bore the brunt, not considering the fact that they refused to join in that protest. Because go to Lagos, go to the north, all the properties that were destroyed to Igbo people, all from A to Z.
Okay, moving ahead from that, you said earlier that the people should, call for a recurrence of these arms if they are not working, if they are not doing what they're supposed to do. And I'm asking, what is there an organization set apart by the people, for the people, that should do the recurrence?
Now, the Constitution says that if you come to the State House of Assembly, there are state constituencies. Enugu State is divided into 24 constituencies. If you go to the federal, there are constituencies, 371 for the federal National Assembly, for the House of Reps, and 109 for the Senate. These are constituencies. You have senatorial constituency, you have federal constituency, you have state constituency. Now, anybody, assuming that I am now representing this constituency and the people want to recall me, the Constitution said that they will write a letter to be subscribed by a percentage of the voting population in that constituency and addressed to the chairman, national chairman, the chairman of National Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. When the moment the chairman receives that letter, he will inform the legislator that is sought to be recalled. Then the legislator will state his own reaction, which the INEC will publish. And at the end of the day, the people, after looking at the reaction of the man, may still vote for his recall or not. That's the process of recall. But you and I know that it is very, very difficult, if not impossible. Because even when I was in government, when I was in the legislature, the government of the day tried to recall me. It was, they found a brick wall, they met a brick wall. Because looking at the Constitution, it is difficult. Probably, like I did say before, impossible to do it.
Okay, I'm going to go personal right now. Why were you recalled?
You see, it's been a long story, and I believe that most Nigerians, especially most politicians in Nigeria at that time, they all followed the thing, and they were also, all of them know about it. You see, and it was simply because when you vote a man into the legislature, his duty is to speak. And so, but when you are speaking, there are persons who may not like what you are saying. In as much as what you are saying is for the people. Because constituency says, go and stay there and speak our mind. You go there and you are speaking their mind. There are people who will not like it. So those persons who will not like it will begin to fight you. Just like you know that the moment you begin to fight corruption, corruption will start fighting back. Does it mean that corruption is in the interest of the people? It's certainly not. But then that same corruption will fight you back. And will even use those things that are legal, those things that the law supports to fight you. If there's our colonial masters in 1677 had a big problem. That big problem they had, law, they decided to change the law. That's in the spirit of that legal maxim that says that ratio est legis anima. Mutata legis ratione mutato et lex. That reason is the soul of the law. That the moment the reason changes, the law must of necessity be changed. So because that problem was there, they decided to enact a law, the statute of fraud. Because fraud was indescribable in Britain, in the United Kingdom. They now enacted this statute of fraud of 1677. But after enacting the statute of fraud, which was enacted to eliminate fraud, the fraudsters converted statute into an instrument of fraud. They now began to use that statute to even commit more fraud. So the government of United Kingdom had no alternative than to immediately abrogate that law. So that's what I'm saying, that if there is something that is being done and that thing is no longer serving the purpose for which it was brought into being, you owe a duty and a responsibility to change it.
All right, so because of time, I just want to ask you, you said you found a brick wall during your own case. Was it because you were found not guilty?
You mean when I was in the assembly?
Yes, when you were in the assembly.
No. When I was in the assembly, I think that the entire country were too happy with me. The people of Enugu State were exceedingly happy with me. Okay. And but you see, because there were few individuals, I've said in 2007 that fight was over, so I don't want to go back to it. Okay. It was a fight that even the international community were aware. In fact, I remember that I used to get a lot of calls from overseas, from Nigerians, especially Igbo people, who called to tell me that they found their way out of Nigeria and they went to the refugee camp in some of those countries. So when they got there, they told them that they were my brother. That because of the circumstances where I found myself, some persons were sent to kill me because of my principled dissent on the floor of the House of Assembly. The people ended up killing my look-alike brother, and they were still pursuing me because I was in the papers, every paper, every news, every television, every radio, even BBC, just anything. So because these people were still pursuing me, they were also pursuing my brothers. So they will tell the refugee camps there that they were my brothers and that if they go back to Nigeria, they will be killed, so that they should be allowed to live there, to stay there. So many of them will now call me and say, please, give us anything that will show that will bring out, because even the immigration of those countries knew my name. They knew the circumstances of everything that took place. All
right, Barrister, time will not allow us. But finally, you said something about irresponsive. How can we educate people to know about this right? Just in a few minutes.
Yes. It is important that Nigerians should know. Nigerians should know that the government is their own. They should not be talking about the leadership, the leadership, the leadership. If there is an irresponsive leadership, an irresponsive followership, that's why you have an irresponsive leadership. If the people know that they must keep their leaders on their toes, then we will have a government that is responsive, responsible, and very good. It's important.
Thank you very much.
From anywhere anybody is,
yes,
let the person speak up.
All right. Thank you very much, Barrister. It's been enlightening having you in the studio with us to educate us on many of these things. Of course, we would want to have more conversation with you over time, but thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm grateful.
Now, we've been discussing with Barrister, and he has been educating us and giving us much more insight. Of course, you can watch this again on our YouTube channel and on Facebook. You can like, share, make your comments as well, drop your own perspective as well. We want to hear what you have to say. We're going to be moving over to our business financial report right away.